Well, it's invisible, but it's everywhere. In the workplace, maybe in your home. It's actually even all around me here, right now. It's Wi-Fi, wireless radio high-frequency signals, connecting us to the internet through a network of routers. Many schools are using Wi-Fi too, and some parents want it out, saying it's unsafe for students. Joanna Remiliotis investigates.
I'm scared every day. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if he's going to, if I'm going to get a phone call saying that Jeremiah's in the hospital.
The start of a new school year, and for some parents in Collingwood, that means the worrying begins all over again. This is the site of a perplexing coincidence or a disturbing connection. A school where a dozen students began to develop headaches, nausea, rashes, and racing hearts after the school went completely wireless.
I felt fine last year, but this year I feel weird, and I get a lot of headaches.
Jeremiah Churchley is one of those kids. We met him this past summer when school was out.
My heart beats really fast, and my head starts hurting, and it bugs me a lot. And I get really thirsty.
All at the same time? So can you describe what it feels like when all this is happening to you?
Well, I start feeling very nervous when it all starts happening, especially with my heart. I always think I'm going to die because it's beating so fast. I think I'm going to have a heart attack, but I don't.
Doctors put Jeremiah on a heart monitor for a few days, but couldn't figure out what was causing his heart to suddenly race. The symptoms would disappear when Jeremiah was home and start again at school. One day, his mother Betty was with him when he pulled out his laptop in the classroom.
And he grabbed my hand. He put my hand on his heart. And his heart was beating so fast. And it was hard. And you could actually see it beating through the sweater.
How do you know it's Wi-Fi?
That's a good question, and it's something that the school board and Health Canada needs to look into.
I've had him to the hospital. They don't know what's wrong with him. I keep mentioning, is it possible the Wi-Fi at the school? But a couple of doctors never even heard of it.
For months, Churchley has been looking for answers, and she's not alone.
I get a phone call that he's collapsed again. So I just feel lost.
About 30 parents in this central Ontario area also believe their children got sick after Wi-Fi was installed in their schools.
Wi-Fi in schools is a bad idea.
On this night, they've invited a controversial professor from Trent University to speak to the community. Magda Havis is Canada's leading voice against Wi-Fi. She's researched radiation effects on health for nearly 20 years and says about 3% of the population is sensitive to radiation.
I think that the inventors of radar never dreamed that we would have the same frequencies inside classrooms exposing children to them.
Havis says Wi-Fi routers are like mini cell phone towers, and based on what some studies on cell phone tower exposure and cell phone use have found, she says Wi-Fi can be dangerous too.
The closest we can get are cell phones and cell phone towers, very similar frequencies, and we're finding it's making people sick.
Wi-Fi works through the transmission of radio waves between a router and a small transmitter in a computer. The radiation signals are about 50 times weaker than a cell phone.
But critics say a child in a school that is completely wireless is spending the day under a Wi-Fi smog, constantly exposed to radiation signals from many transmitters from the hours of 9 to 3 every day.
In fact, in these parts, there's no getting away from Wi-Fi in classrooms. In the last 2 years, the wireless technology has been installed in more than 100 schools in the area.
There's one up by the ceiling that provides coverage for this area.
We got a tour of Mountain View after students had gone home for the summer. 8 routers are in place here. There's even one in the kindergarten class. Parents like Churchley have offered to pay to have the school hardwired and say they aren't asking for much more.
Getting somebody, a professional, in to investigate. Either turn off the Wi-Fis, all of them, for a few months and see how the kids act.
Brad Saunders is the chair of the Simcoe County District School Board.
Why not turn off some of the transmitters? Why not, take a cautionary approach until the debate is settled?
Well, because we don't think a cautionary approach is warranted. We've heard nothing from knowledgeable people to indicate to us that Wi-Fi is a health hazard for children. And we've done our homework on that, and either the people who we're talking to are misguided or are lying, and I don't believe they are, and so I trust the advice we're getting.
The board did consult with a lot of experts after parents raised concerns. Provincial health authorities, a radiation scientist, and checked in with the final authority on the issue, Health Canada. All say Wi-Fi is perfectly safe.
And is the parents' knowledge or their belief not enough?
No.
Why not?
Well, again, it goes back to our belief in the advice from Health Canada. We have to put our belief somewhere with somebody who's knowledgeable. With the greatest respect to these parents in Collingwood, I don't think they're as knowledgeable as Health Canada. I don't think they have access to the same resources as Health Canada, and therefore that's where we place our faith.
Health Canada sets the rules on how much exposure is too much in Safety Code 6. I went to Health Canada to ask how they come to those conclusions. Beth Peterson is the Director of Environmental and Radiation Health Sciences at Health Canada.
There are thousands, literally thousands of articles have been published over the years. Internationally, it's been studied a lot, and there's no evidence that connects any health effects with exposure.
But Health Canada's safety limits have come under fire because they're based on whether radiation signals have a thermal effect. That is, whether they heat tissues in your body and pose a health risk. Wi-Fi signals are called non-thermal because they aren't strong enough to have a heating effect. But critics say there is plenty of proof they can still be dangerous.
When you look at research done elsewhere, what they're finding is there's absolutely no heating possible, and yet you're having these reactions. The blood starts clotting, people can't sleep at night, they develop headaches, and this is well below the thermal guidelines. And I think and so far our government has basically said, well, that can't be. There must be something wrong with the way they did the studies, but you can't start faulting thousands and thousands of studies.
The thousands of studies the Wi-Fi skeptics point to are in what's called the Bioinitiative Report. The studies in it link low-level radiation exposure to a spectrum of health risks, from insomnia and reproductive damage to cancer. Health Canada stopped short of calling the report fringe science.
The general consensus of the international scientific community is that they don't agree with the conclusions of the Bioinitiative Report.
So the people who have these studies, who come up with these studies, do we ignore their findings?
No, we don't ignore them. They're considered also. But again, we consider them the same way as all others.
But even a 1999 report commissioned by Health Canada could not rule out the possibility of adverse health effects of non-thermal radiation and called for more research, especially among children.
And I think there has been lots more research than then, and the findings are still the same. There's no conclusive evidence that there are biological effects that would require us to change the limit in Safety Code 6.
No conclusive evidence and still a raging debate. Despite decades of research, yes, science is not absolute, but there's a big piece of information missing that helps explain why. Despite the thousands of studies both sides draw on, there's not one on Wi-Fi that focuses specifically on children. And the fact that there are no specific studies done on children, does that concern you?
Not for this, no, it doesn't concern me.
We need to be concerned about susceptible populations.
But it does concern many experts, including one of the top scientists Health Canada consults with regularly. Daniel Krusky is the director of the McLaughlin Centre for Population Health Risk Assessment. He says the weight of evidence does suggest Wi-Fi is not harmful, but says children could be more vulnerable to prolonged exposure because they're still developing. And he wants to know more.
Although there have been a large number of studies focusing on radio frequency fields, everyone really is identifying children as an area where we do actually need more data.
And it's that gap that continues to fuel fears.
This is the first time anyone said, please tell us what's wrong.
Collingwood parents managed to make their case to Ontario health officials last month. The ministry is now reviewing the science behind Wi-Fi. And concerns have been raised in other parts of the country too.
If there's a question mark, you wouldn't cross the street.
This summer, concerned parents and international experts drew hundreds from Toronto to Vancouver to lectures on Wi-Fi risks And Lakehead University already bans Wi-Fi on its campuses. In Collingwood, another school year has started, and still no one can answer the question. Are the sick kids here a Wi-Fi warning signal, or is something else going on? Krusky says it's time a top authority like Health Canada investigates.
I'd probably want to, number one, get some accurate measures of the level of exposure. When the public is concerned, it's the responsibility of regulatory agencies to also be concerned and to look into those issues and help resolve them.
Would you go into Collingwood and investigate what's going on?
We haven't been approached to do that, and
would you offer to do it?
I guess I can't answer that question.
No?
We'd have to know more.
Okay, guys.
For Churchley, there are few options. Jeremiah was fine all summer. His mother has transferred him to another school, but it's an empty form of protest. His new school has Wi-Fi too. Joanna Rumiliotis, CBC News, Collingwood, Ontario.